planning. So you've decided that you want to collaborate with another teacher for an arts integrated lesson. Yay! As most of my collaborations had to take place electronically due to scheduling conflicts, I developed a tool in Google Slides that I would share with the other teachers so that we could plan together in between meeting up or having discussions. This tool can be used in any of the variants to teaching arts integrated lessons collaboratively. Whether I would teach alone, we would teach separately, or together as a team. Let's walk through this resource to see what kinds of conversations you could have in the planning phase. I've included a link for you in the handout so that you can make a copy and have it for yourself. The first slide here is where I would gather ideas. So maybe I have an idea already in mind, or I heard about a topic that was coming up in another curriculum, or I came across a really great piece of art that I think has good potential for my students to learn from. I can fill out the boxes on this page to kind of generate and gather those ideas right here. Here, I can take a look at ideas that me and the intended collaborating teacher can work on together. So I would just look at each one of these questions before meeting with that teacher so I have something in mind already. Then when we meet together, or maybe it's going to be electronically filling this out, we have something to contribute. The first question is the essential question or the big ideas that we want to explore together. So maybe I'm noticing in my classroom that my students aren't grasping this particular topic or skill, and I think an additional lesson or collaborative lesson would help them understand that better. Or maybe I just have a really big idea that I want to integrate with another subject. Me as the arts teacher can input those questions or big ideas in my box, and the other content teacher can put theirs in their box. Then collaboratively, we can design and ask essential questions or ideas that we think combines each of our contents naturally. For example, if I'm noticing that my students are having a hard time transferring two-dimensional ideas to three-dimensional forms, I could put in the big idea area of why students need to do that, or why is it important to be able to transfer two-dimensional thinking to three-dimensional thinking. Then in their content box, maybe they have a big idea or question around why scientists have or use models in their teaching and learning. Our big essential question could be something along the lines of, why do artists and scientists use models to understand things? Or how do three-dimensional models help artists and scientists understand things and communicate ideas? The next section deals with skills, processes, and knowledge that our students already understand about our big idea. So in that last slide, we picked our big idea and essential question that we both had and made our ideas come together. Now we're going to break down what skills go with that idea. In the last example, I could add skills for the slide on drawing diagrams or sketches to show multiple viewpoints of a potential 3D model. I could also include modeling techniques and vocabulary such as form. The other content teacher, the science teacher in this example, would add what scientific model drawings need to include and what skills and labeling need to go with that learning and with a 3D model that would be used for a topic we picked in science. We could also have a conversation about what background knowledge students already possess that would help them with this lesson or big idea. Listing the background knowledge in each content and seeing what matches up is a great way to help students combine that learning and activate that background knowledge in each content to further new learning. The next slide continues that idea with what skills or knowledge are students currently struggling with or need more practice on that we want to incorporate in this lesson that we're working on together. This could be the meat of our lesson and how our students demonstrate that knowledge. Now that we think we have an idea that aligns together, we're going to take a look at our standards and see which standards in our own content areas address this kind of learning. If we each have a standard that aligns with this idea seed, then we can proceed. So now we're ready to begin planning out that lesson. The next tool is a lesson plan, just broken down into the main parts for an arts integration setting. First up, we have the two standards, the art standard and the content standard. I would input the art standard that I selected that aligned to the idea, and they would pick the content standard that they selected that aligned to our idea. We would then enter our learning goal that incorporated the ideas from each standard equally. This could be in the form of an I can statement, depending on what your district does. We worked together to develop the lesson description, giving the students and ourselves an overview of what was going to take place. The next section, we can break down key vocabulary in the content and in the arts. So the key vocabulary can be less specific vocabulary that incorporates some of the art and some of the content together. The artistic concepts are exclusively what art concepts are going to be taught, and the core content concepts and skills that would be specific to the scientific model. Here in the purple box, we would list out the essential questions that we'll be asking our students to help guide their learning as they work through to master the standards we have selected. Our lesson plan is going to include a lesson sequence that will help scaffold that learning for our students in a I do, we do, you do model for gradual release. And listed in these boxes will be the activities that will help guide those students towards that. There's also an assessment column that we have planned for each step of this lesson. I took special care to include a feedback column in our lesson sequence as well. Giving students feedback that is actionable as the lesson progresses is a must-have for standard-based learning and arts integration lesson planning. When you give your students feedback, it helps them understand where they are in their learning and what they need to do to get to the next level or next step in that learning. If you wait till the end of the lesson plan to give them feedback, your students are not having that time. You're not giving them the opportunity to apply that feedback to their learning, right? So the lesson is over and they can't do anything about it. So making it a habit to include feedback in your lesson sequence and decide what's what and what it's going to look like and what time you're going to set aside for that, if it's going to be written or verbal, helps make sure that you work it in and have it so you can give and receive feedback for your students. This portion of the lesson may look different in the classroom depending on if we are team teaching or I was teaching by myself or we were splitting the lesson into each of our own classrooms. Because we planned the lesson together and the steps that the lesson is going to include, we'll be covering and planning assessment together as well. In this rubric example, it has the art standard listed and the content standard listed. And then on the left-hand column are the skills that are assessed. So this is where we quantify those performance indicators. For example, a student used 3 labels from their 2-dimensional scientific drawing, or a student used 2 labels from their 2-dimensional scientific drawing, and so on. This is also a proficient scale model, so it would break those performance indicators down from a 4 to a 1. The teacher and student feedback portion on this rubric is more of a qualitative collection of ideas. At this point in the lesson plan, feedback is given to help the students transfer those skills into the next lesson, and the student feedback portion is a chance for them to reflect on their learning.